I will open the meeting at 7:02. Oh, we don't have a recording second. Are you doing that?
Yeah, I'm here. Are you doing it?
Okay. All right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, I just did it that way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
George Cullis,
Yes.
Debbie Miller,
Yes, here.
Karen Winchester here, Brett Stillwell, Chief Lenz.
Sure. Okay, I would make a motion to excuse Mr. Stillwell.
Support.
Motion by Supervisor Cullis, support by Clerk Winchester. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Now, Mr. Gamke is also absent. I will read his resignation. I stand by what I said on January 2023 meeting. I have decided to resign from the NOCFA board effective today, March 20th. Sincerely. Well, that's not sincerely, but that's what I said. Paul Gamke, treasurer. It's just a misspell. Can I get a motion to accept the resignation?
Don't make me get my gun.
Seriously?
Well, it's not on the agenda.
Well, do we want to amend the agenda and put it down later?
Yeah.
Do it twice? We do the sooner the better. Anyways. Is that my outside voice?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, then we'll do an agenda approval. We will amend the agenda to show letter D for the Gamke resignation.
I'd move to approve the agenda as amended.
A second.
Motion by Clerk Winchester, support by Clerk Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Now we will go into the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. They do not require discussion by the NOCFA board, and they will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired on an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda, and it will automatically be moved to the last item under new business.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Clerk Winchester. Is there support?
Miller.
By Clerk Miller. Roll call, please.
Debbie Miller,
Yes.
Karen Winchester, yes. George Cullis.
Yes. Motion carries 3-0. Public comment on agenda items only. Members of the public may address the board once recognized by the chair. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public will state their name and address for the record. A second public comment is available prior to the adjournment of the meeting for all other comments. Thank you for your cooperation. Mr. Johnson.
I like to talk about nothing.
Dan Johnson, 8635 Tipsco Trail, Holly, Michigan. I guess under new business, one of the letters received was one that I wrote, and I would just like to ask council, being as they have not voted yet to accept Mr. Gamke's resignation, could they still hold a vote of no confidence?
Well, technically, the answer is no. Here's the problem is the bylaws don't allow them to do that. There's no policy that allows them to do that. You can always hold a vote of no confidence, but it has no authority.
Right.
So they can't, so you're basically asking me a question that I can't give an answer to. They have no authority to do it.
Yeah.
Because there's no policy or bylaws to do
It's on our agenda and we'll discuss that.
Okay.
it. Sorry.
Any other public comment?
Don't worry, I wasn't gonna comment at all, but
Julie?
Do they use Robert's Rules of Order, yes or no?
Technically, yes, Robert's Rules of Order should be used to conduct a board meeting. Now, Robert's Rules of Orders can be a little loosey-goosey sometimes, and that's absolutely acceptable unless, of course, there's a situation where they're voting to affirm or spend money, approve budgets, that type of thing, needs to follow strict Robert's Rules of Order. But when you're talking public comment, a little loosey-goosey is not necessarily a problem,
Except in your case.
except in your situation.
It's pretty bad, it's, you know, it fluctuates, you know, one time they're using it, one time they're not, and, you know.
Well, when they have official board duties, like the budget, or anything that involves any decision making by them where there's gotta be a vote, they have to follow it to the T. When they're not, then you can be a little more loosey-goosey. It's absolutely okay. It's not gonna beat you on.
In fact, sometimes when you read, it'll say it's the discretion of the chair. But you'll see, like, when we did the consent agenda, I did roll call. We follow those protocols. But there is a little bit of leeway for it. Not on that, but on other items.
I
Anyone
do
else?
like the fact that I'm getting more questions than you guys.
For the record, so do we. Okay, anyone else for public comment? None appearing? I will move on. Presentations, we have none. Unfinished business, articles and incorporation revisions, creating board policies. I so want us to be able to work on that, but it would be nice when we have a full board and we're going to present.
Yeah, I guess what I'm suggesting is this. That's why I sent a letter in. I sent a letter in to address some of the censuring issues and some of the legal problems that the board has. And one big problem is you're governed by your bylaws. The bylaws don't allow a censure. They don't allow you to recuse that member from voting, the whole 9 yards. So I proposed a board policy to address that. And my suggestion is this, is since I don't perceive that we're ever going to be able to sit down and get a full book of policies, let's do it as we go. We know what this problem is. You've got a proposed policy in front of you, something to work on or redraft or edit. But that makes the most sense to me. So if we got to do a onesie twosie, great. But that's better than not getting them done and installing on this stuff.
Right.
Okay?
Right, thank you. So, under the old business articles of incorporation and revisions, it's a little mixed because under new business, we have member censure policy, and I have those documents under there. So beyond that, I'd like to table the unfinished business portion of the articles so that I can go out and new business and deal with it all at once.
Right. Just do no action. No, just go on the agenda.
Yep. Is that okay? Debbie?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So we'll put no action. Then we will move on to new business member censure policy. Now, we have a letter from the attorney. I had sent some questions after I received the letters from both the public and employees of the department. And well, before I go too far, in that letter, it was sent to us, and the top of it.
Which one are you talking about? My letter?
Yeah, but let me deal with the first thing I had to get out of the way.
Okay.
Because right at the top of the letter, it says attorney-client privilege. I would like the board to vote to make this a public document.
That's absolutely fine. It's in your discretion.
All right. You've both had this letter. You're familiar with it. I would like to make it a public document. Therefore, I will move to do so. Is there support? Support. Motion by Supervisor Cullis, support by Clerk Winchester to make the letter from the attorney public information. Roll call, please.
Debbie Miller,
Yes.
Karen Winchester, yes. George Paulus.
Yes. Motion carries 3-0. Now, we can go into the document.
Basically, I can do it in a nutshell if you want me to.
Sure.
In a nutshell, one of the things,
Excuse me.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Well, I have one more thing. For those of you that want a copy of that letter, I brought them here this evening. Want to take a minute? If you'd like, there are 15, so if you've got couples and we share, we should be good.
it makes for good reading for insomnia. Too.
Good reading for what?
Insomnia.
Oh, sweet.
Okay.
I thought that whole thing was the policy, and like, man, y'all gonna have to take policy.
I hope not.
That's just one of them.
No. All right, so the question that you posed was to how to handle a board member who made statements that were allegedly defamatory and the ramifications for the board and legal liability the board may or may not have. And I believe that there were some issues that the union or letters the union had sent in and other members or citizens had sent concerning the defamatory comments.
To clarify, we did not get a letter.
But we did not, okay. Well, good. But my analysis was only as to those defamatory statements as they impact the board, because the board is my only client, not really anybody else individually or otherwise. So any defamatory statements that are made, which could be, there's two lanes we can go in. One is, if you make a statement that someone out here considers defamatory and it's while you're acting in your position as a board member, but you honestly have faith and belief that what you are saying is true and accurate, and you're not saying it with the intent that you're harming someone or that the statement is false, then the board itself really has no liability for defamation. There's something called governmental immunity. We went through that on the PowerPoint presentation that I gave a couple months ago. So here, with respect to the former board member, while his statements may or may not be defamatory, they do fit within the scope exception from a governmental immunity standpoint. So I didn't feel that we had any liability problems, that he could be sued personally for the defamatory statements if they were defamatory and if they caused injury or harm to the people about whom he said them. However, you as a board have no way of censuring him or taking any ramifications against a board member who may say something out of line. The bylaws don't cover it. They don't give you any authority to do it. And so my idea was to draft a censure policy that you guys could vote on, accept, or maybe even edit, to allow you and give you the ability in the future to censure someone who makes statements that you consider to be out of line and you want to show the public you consider them to be out of line. Censuring is not only the viable option. You can censure, you can actually not count that person's vote on certain things, etc. I stuck with straight censure. I wasn't sure how far you wanted to go. Now, you can't fire the person because the public has voted this board member, but you can strike what he said or she has said, censure that person and or not count their vote. So those are really the avenues you have from a policy standpoint. I drafted the policy not really knowing what you wanted, but I thought, hey, it's a good start. You can make some edits and then I can finalize it off. But I just needed some comment and input. That's it.
Okay.
Did I not hit? I think I hit everything that you had addressed.
Yeah. I will ask you one question. In Mr. Gamka's statements, he mentioned that he had a recording of it. Would that therefore be FOIA-able?
Well, that's a tricky question because I don't know if he took the recording. Did he do it during a board meeting? Did he do it during an official meeting? Or did he sneak up behind somebody and start recording them? Was a recording he made on the phone? Does it violate the wiretap statute? I'm not sure. I can't answer that question because I don't have enough information.
Okay.
Usually something, in order for it to be FOIA-able, it has to be a document a recording. It's got to be something that was done or conducted or put together by the public municipality in the course of it engaged in its operations. So something to think about is that policy. After we draft the policy, it's foiable. Well, it's technically foiable now, but anyway, that's kind of the thing. So if one of you walk out of this meeting and record one of these citizens in the hallway, you're not doing it as a board member. So because it's outside the scope of you as a board member, it arguably would not be foiable.
Okay. Well, I asked that question because I'm sure it was on the minds of some folks out there.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So the NOCFA member censure policy that the attorney supplied us, I do have some comments. The board's had an opportunity to see it. I can read it so the public knows what we're looking at. The NOCFA board, for good cause and in its discretion, may censure a member. Violation of NOCFA bylaws of rules and regulations will constitute good cause. The spreading of false rumors concerning the officers, directors, management, or employees of the North Oakland County Fire Authority, or one or more of them, or the making of untrue, misleading, and disparaging statements or remarks concerning one or more of them, with the intention and calculation to injure or may have a tendency to reading legalese is tricky. Statements or remarks concerning one or more of them with the intention and calculation to injure or may have a tendency to or does injuriously affect the standing, prestige, or influence of the officers, directors, management of North Oakland County Fire Authority, or either of them will constitute good cause. The affirmative vote of a majority of the directors present at any board meeting is required to censure a member. Notice must be given to any accused member of the intention of the board's decision to consider and determine whether the member will be censured. Notice to the member must specifically state the provision or provisions by the bylaws or rules and regulations which have been violated or in the improper conduct constituting good cause as defined here. The accused member may appear at the board meeting and present evidence or make arguments as he or she may deem necessary in defense of himself. Said notice of the board's intentions to censure may also be verbal. The decision of the board as expressed in any order or resolution of censures will be final, unappealable, and binding on the affected member. Now,
But technically, you can't bind anybody to a certain kind of behavior. You can state it, but they
Well,
don't have to follow it.
basically what the policy does is I've taken the definition of defamation and I have said if someone is defamatory or you feel they're defamatory, then that's cause enough for censure. If someone wants to keep on talking despite being censured, what you're doing is you're effectively telling them that those statements aren't going to be, they're not admonished or they're not accepted by the board, and you're admonishing them is basically a censure policy. Unfortunately, you see failings of the censure policy in the legislature constantly, where you have someone who is giving verbal vomit, they're censured by the legislature and they keep talking. That's about all you can do from a censure standpoint. If you want to carry it farther with having the person absent from meetings or something, then things get a little more tricky with respect to what I have to put in the policy. I was trying to put a policy together that you could show the public and other people in the situation that you're censuring the member and that you hear and you don't agree with what that person is saying. You don't concur with it, but at the same time, you want to be able to give people some sort of ability to understand that you are censuring it.
any thoughts, any input?
And I wasn't sure if you wanted me to carry it a little farther with striking their voting.
Well, before I say that, let me just, Brad Stowell wasn't able to be here, but he did receive the
Okay,
documents. And he did send,
An email. Got me to read it?
read what?
Brad's email?
Oh, you got it right there?
Yeah.
Because there's several, well, go ahead.
I got one that was dated Friday, March 17th.
St. Patrick's Day?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
I'm sure this is well thought out.
9:57 PM.
Ooh, even better.
Do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
Okay. It's, this was sent to supervisor. Thank you. And it said, let's see, and it CC'd Karen Winchester, Jeremy, Paul, and Debbie. I have read complaint and censure recommendation. I see no teeth. If we have a board member that is censured and then continue to have personal behavior problems, and censored again and again, then what? Not going to be at a meeting? That is my thoughts. Feel free to read this aloud if warranted.
Okay, so after that email, I responded to Brad individually because if the three of us started communicating, that would be an open meetings violation. So I'll carry from there. I said, thank you for this. Do you feel that the new censure language recommended by the attorney should be adopted? He said, yes. Just wish it had some kind of consequences like removal after being censured 3 times by the board. He said, it's a baseball analogy, 3 strikes and you're out.
And yeah, that's kind of where I was going with this is, I mean, I put that together and, you know, if you want a little more consequences to vote the person off, or miss a meeting or not count their votes, then it's going to have to be much stronger, meaning that we have to give that person due process, more due process with having, you know, a hearing with respect to the defamatory comments and then having, you know, giving them notice, having them come, argue their position, and then making the vote at that point.
You can't vote a person off.
No, you're not voting them off the board whatsoever. No. The vote would be to not allow them to vote or sanction their vote. They wouldn't have any voting power. But you cannot, we cannot
Or on any topic.
for a meeting or on that specific topic. It's up to you.
Oh,
But you can't vote them off the board. You can't, right, you can't like, prohibit them from coming to a meeting. I mean,
Just a public spanking.
it's a public spanking, yes.
And just so you know, Mr. Stillwell has a sense of humor. His last sentence is, oh, in case you want to know, it's sunny and 80 degrees in Florida today.
Can't they hold a vote of no confidence and ask the Rose Township Board to remove Paul? Or couldn't they have?
There's nothing in the bylaws that allows them to do that. That would be an amendment to the bylaws. That wouldn't be a policy, provision. When you're going stronger like that, you have to, your bylaws are the Bible for the board. And if it's not in the Bible, then there's no ability for them to do it. The bylaws do not provide it. So you're basically making a provision that a policy is not going to be able to enforce.
Well, we did that 15 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah, Peter did it with Karen.
No, we, the board, took a vote of no confidence of another board member. Directed a letter out, sent it to the township, Rose Township at that time, and asked them to remove this person from the board because of A, B, and C. And they did.
Well, you can ask them to remove the person from the board, but we don't have the ability. I mean,
Right, it just worked that time.
I'm just
Right.
saying, it has happened in the past.
right, and
I thought what you were saying was they didn't have really the ability to do that.
well, you can always
They
ask.
have it. We don't have the ability to do it. That
I thought she was saying.
No.
Just a minute ago, that she was saying that the board does not have the ability to even ask.
Oh, no, the board has the ability to ask.
Oh, okay.
We do not, the board does not have its own independent ability to throw the person off. Okay.
The attorney aware of the recent censure as a precedent, possible precedent setting.
What?
What?
When
That was rescinded. That was rescinded 2 months later in December.
But, okay, but without Gamka's vote.
That happened before you were here.
I can't be responsible for things that are.
No, I just want to know if there was a precedent that you might consider in your.
Oh, yeah, no, I haven't. I'm not aware of that situation.
So Mr. Stillwell feels that it should be adopted, but with teeth.
All right, well, then I can take it back to the drawing board and circulate some more provisions. But again, it's going to clamp down a little more on the board with respect to how you handle it, how you document it, and how you vote on it. If I'm adding some more teeth, okay?
Well, to be honest with you, the fact that it's there, I would hope would be enough deterrent so that we don't have to enter this type of thing.
Well, I mean, you know, this isn't my first time around the sun. And I've dealt in the past with city councils, as an assistant city attorney. And, half the time, I didn't think that the city council members read the policies or the bylaws or had an understanding of what they said. So I'm hoping that we keep this policy book kind of bare minimum so that people jump on the board, they see it, they know it's there and will abide by it, hopefully. One can hope.
What kind of teeth? I mean, is it worth?
What she just said,
Yeah.
no, you might lose the right to vote that.
Oh, okay.
Right, you're losing the right to vote. They're not being kicked out of the meeting and they're not being kicked off the board. Okay?
I think what you were getting at before she started going in about teeth, was having a censure option really doesn't do anything.
No,
Right.
And I agree.
Yeah,
It's just bat and ball back and forth.
it is.
But given the history of, sorry, what I'm going to call a road board member that comes into this organization, you were on the board back then. We've seen this happen from time to time, and unfortunately it does.
It does.
And it's an obvious derelict of duty, in my opinion, of the people that do that. But I think if I have something other than censure,
Yeah.
if you're allowed to do that, this is the first time I didn't even know that.
Well, I mean,
You can set rules for that.
oh, absolutely, you can set rules for
I
that.
think it's something that I hope we never have to use, but
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I'll play with it and add some teeth. And there are some like intellectual legal people out there who don't really practice law, but they write great books, who make arguments that when people become members of board and they take the oath and they swear to follow the bylaws, when they go rogue, there's arguments to be made that they are no longer following the bylaws and should be yada, yada. That's more intellectually stimulating than pragmatic. And so I'm not kind of going down those little academic lines of legal thought. I'm pragmatic, boots on the ground, here's what's going to work kind of thing. So I could make it intellectually stimulating, but I don't think it's going to be enforced.
Well, also, whatever we do and add, edit, delete from the bylaws, once that draft is done, it's got to go to the two townships to
Right.
be voted on,
Yes.
or else it's,
That's fine too.
Right.
so.
All right, and so from a policy standpoint, is there anything else here you guys are thinking about that I can draft while I'm adding some teeth to that? Any other issues? No? Sexual harassment policy?
Well, you've seen the ones we had before with the pieces that, you saw the policies and procedures as they were drafted and approved by this board the last time.
No, that's,
No.
that's the ordinance. That's the bylaws.
Oh,
That's the bylaws. I've got the bylaws.
Yeah.
The bylaws are different than the policy.
Yes.
Policy can be changed at any point in time by the board. The bylaws have to be changed by the townships.
What's considered a policy versus a bylaw, because if you
Poli-
look through our bylaws, there could be some things that could be considered a policy.
Well, your policies govern your protocols and your procedures when you're actively doing what you do. Your bylaws govern what you need to do, what you do. So how many votes, how many, meetings, what the meetings can
Those are
encompass.
bylaws.
Those are your bylaws.
Correct.
Your policy is how you,
Robert's Rules of Order?
yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
that's in bylaws.
Well, Robert's Rules of Order, yeah, you're following them, but from a policy protocol standpoint, your policy is here to govern what happens when you have situations that aren't addressed in the bylaws. So
Okay.
the bylaws don't address rogue board members. The bylaws don't address who can and cannot sit as a board member. The bylaws, there's a whole litany of things that the bylaws don't address. What? Do you want me to keep going?
No.
Okay.
So I have a question. When we looked at those, one of the things we talked about was putting term limits on the citizen at large.
Mhm.
One of the things we talked about was who could serve on a board,
Right.
like past employees that had left in an unfavorable manner.
Right.
Would those have been policies or would those be bylaws?
Technically, it'd be better if they're bylaws. I would recommend those as bylaws. We can throw them in as policies, but I would still recommend that as a bylaw. Start with a policy, go to the townships and say, we'd rather have this be a bylaw. Will you allow us to amend or will you amend the bylaws?
No, we technically
already
have
said
no
no.
policies.
Right, you
Right.
technically have
We
no
have no
policy,
policy.
none
Right.
whatsoever, ground up.
And anything that was in the gray area is in the bylaws.
There's a lot of gray area in the bylaws, a lot of gray area.
But can you
So we need
take
to
those and
fix
make those
that, too.
policies then?
So we need to fix that and have two documents.
We do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, one's policy and one's bylaws. Yeah, the bylaws are a
Do we
lot
at this
harder.
point ask the attorney to take the bylaws, look at them and create the second
I
document?
would think that that would probably be a good next step. Is for you to look at the bylaws and separate what you believe is policy.
Oh, no, the bylaws are the bylaws. I can't pull out of the bylaws what I think is a
I'm
policy.
asking you, under your legal opinion, to
Oh.
go through, separate what you think should be a policy instead of in the bylaws. Bring that to us, so
Okay,
that we as the board,
Because we need to amend the bylaws. We have to come to an agreement
Right.
at some point.
all right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I can give you a couple of lists.
We currently don't have the two documents.
Yeah, the
But
bylaws
going
are
forward, this
awful.
is what we need to fix, because what we've lived through for the past 3 years, we don't want to do that again.
Okay,
And, well, we have to learn from history. So we
Right.
know where we were, we know where we want to be, and we need to put the things in place to make sure that never happens again.
all right. Well, I'm going to send out a list of things that I think we should add to the bylaws and list that we should include as policies. And you guys tell me what you think. All right?
Okay,
Is this for me?
Mr. Shield.
Just in general, I mean, when we talk about your bylaws and the articles of incorporation under Public Act 57,
Well, the articles are a little different.
they're right.
The articles are authority under the Corporation Act. So.
Correct. So they are not, by virtue of being on this board, they were not elected to this board. They were elected to their position. Like in a township, like you do
Right.
with municipalities, they were appointed to the board.
Mhm.
So can they not face different consequences than an actual elected position would face? Because the rules are very binding for elected officials, but not as binding for
Appointed.
appointed officials. That being the one thing, the next thing being, you know, when, as far as I know, when you look at our, bylaws, your guiding documents, those have to be approved by both townships independently.
Right.
When you look at, policy and rules and regulations, those are allowed to be voted on by the board
Absolutely.
themselves without both townships having to be involved. If I
Correct.
remember correctly, so.
That's absolutely correct. And this board currently has no policies whatsoever. And getting back to your other question, under the corporation, the articles of incorporation, the way I interpret them, there really is no different. Even though they've been appointed, they're still being treated under the law as if they were elected. And it makes no distinguishment. And so I'm treating them that way. I would rather be safe, a little more conservative in the interpretation than, footloose and fancy free.
Sure.
And just say, oh, it's too bad. I'm moving out of the township.
That's not.
Anything else?
I think we're good.
Nobody's got questions for me? Okay.
Right. Now, the next thing on the new business were the letters received regarding NOCFA. I originally had planned on reading those into the record. I think with Mr. Gamka's, resignation, I will simply add those to the record and submit them. We don't need to go through all of that. C is the second review of the proposed FY 2024 NOCFA budgets.
Included in your packet was the budget that was originally looked at for the first time last month. Debbie, I know you weren't here. Have you gotten a chance to
Yes, I
review it?
read it.
So I guess we go through once again, any questions that I can answer. So be it, and if not, then as is the norm, the board needs to make a motion to send it to the townships for the approval. There were no changes, by the way.
I would make a motion to, forward these to the townships for approval.
Motion by Clerk Winchester. Is there support?
Support.
By Clerk Miller. Discussion. I guess I do have one question.
Yes.
Oh, it's not for you, sorry. Well, only because we've been through this before. I do have a question for Rose Township, with Paul not being here. Do we know if this amount matches what you will be collecting with your new millage?
The 1056?
Well, yeah, I bring this up because we approved the budget a year ago. Everybody here agreed. And it went back to the township and it came back tonight because there was a shortfall. So I'm saying before we go, yep, this is good, send it back. Paul's not here, he's your treasurer. I don't know what your 3.5 mils collects.
It is over them.
Their 3 mills collects 1.2 something.
I gave it to you.
She just.
Okay, so it covers this.
It does.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
That doesn't necessarily mean,
They're gonna,
Well,
but yes, it does.
no, but the excuse given when they came back last year was there was a $357,000 shortfall that Paul didn't know about.
Well, Jeremy and I already talked about, what, 3 weeks ago or so? When I gave you the figures you needed to know what.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
I gave it, what was one point
It was 1,200,000 and some change.
Yeah,
Okay, I just,
because he was preparing the budget, so he and I,
okay, I just wanted to clear that
no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
because where we were, all right, then I'm good.
I would like to remind each township representative that there are 2 separate budgets. There's an operating and a capital.
Yep.
That needs to go before each one of your boards.
Is your motion covering both of these?
Mhm.
Okay. So you said it with an S at the end of budget?
budgets, yes.
All right, clear roll call vote, please.
Debbie Miller,
Yes,
Karen Winchester, yes. George Cullis.
Yes. Motion carries 3-0. Now, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the resignation of Paul Gamka.
Make a motion to approve the resignation of Paul Gamka.
To accept.
To accept.
Yourself in trouble.
I'll support, thank you.
Clerk Winchester, Clerk Milden. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 3-0. Reports, including the monthly incident data for February of 23. Start with the chief.
February incident data, we did 86 calls, 55 medicals, one structure fire and about 13, 14 car accidents. We did, 7 runs to our neighbors for mutual aid. We had, 24 calls in Rose Township and 45 in Holly Township, 10 out on I-75. Emergency response to priority medical calls was 31 calls at 7.2 minutes. Any questions on that? I would like to bring to the board's attention, Debbie, you were on, but Karen and George, you were on about 5 years ago when we purchased the ambulance from the old ambulance from Independence for $10,000. Just it was our backup ambulance. That ambulance has served us for 4 or 5 years for $10,000, and we really haven't had to put anything into it since we got it. So it served its purpose well. It was recently brought into the shop to get an estimate on some work that ended up being a lot worse than what we thought. We got a quote back for a little over $6,000. So I didn't have the work done yet because I'm hesitant to put that much money into a vehicle we only paid $10,000 for. It is our 4th ambulance. I still would like to carry 4 ambulances. I think it's necessary with having 2 ambulances at each station. If we have, which we've had happen many times in the past, 2 ambulances that 2 of our frontline ones go down for whatever reason. So I am searching for a 4th ambulance. It's going to be a used ambulance. It's going to be a cheap ambulance. I don't know if it'll be 10 grand, but I am in the process of doing it.
What do we do with the existing ambulance? If we're not fixing it, does it have any value?
It's sitting out on the pad right now in limbo, right? Because like I said, we didn't pull the trigger to have the work done on it, and I'm seeing if we could come across another good deal on a used one.
Can you trade it in?
We'll get nothing for it.
Nothing?
We'll get scrap value for it.
Really?
2,000 or 3,000.
No other department would take it for repairs?
Well, the problem is because of the extent of what needs to be done, it's not safe to be driven. And if you put something out to sell it, saying that you got to come get it, but you're going to have to trailer it away, you're not going to get much money. So we will, when we get to that point and put it on the market, we'll probably get a couple grand for it. But at this point,
Scrap.
yeah, at this point, it's sitting, it's not drivable, it's not safe. It's sitting in the back here, and we are actively looking for a new one. We had one that Rochester City was selling that went on their state bid site, but it went too high, went for too much money that I wasn't ready to go with that much right now. So just wanted to let you know that. We still have 3 perfectly fine ambulances. We are searching for a 4th one for a big deal.
Okay.
Also on your packet, every few years, I kind of orchestrate an effort of all of the departments north of 159. I'll even a couple talk about 59 this time. We do a area department data survey. I send out a single page survey to all the fire chiefs. This year I sent out to 15 departments. I got 13 back. Actually, the last time we had about 10, so we got a good response back. And all of the other departments use this too, just to see where everybody's at. It's a good indicator of just statistical stuff for each department, everything from their population, their run counts, how many people they have, full-time, part-time, what they provide, ALS transporting, BLS transporting, no transporting, how they staff their stations, wages for their full-time, wages for the code on call, millages, for their communities they serve, what their annual operating budgets are, what their capital budgets are. And all that is put into the final spreadsheet. That's why it's on 11 by 17 paper, 2 pages long. And again, it's just an interesting comparable type spreadsheet. You will see that
Is the Milford Fire Department, is that the village and the township?
yes. And Milford is going through a transition right now as well, where they have been all paid on the call. For the most part, for a long time. They are now going full-time.
I say, because they've got quite a small budget.
They will not have that small of a budget when they get done, because Tim, what did you say? They're putting 15? They're adding 15 full-time positions?
The initial was for 12, and then they had board members come in and watch their daily operation, because I hired the first 6. And they were getting, which were all officers, they were getting ready to hire the second 6, and the board wanted to see how it was going, how the department operated. And they came back and they said, you guys are gonna be short at 12. You need a minimum of 3 more to do what you guys are doing. So they're going up for 15.
Highland Township, 3 years ago when I did this study, was at 1.5 full-time people. They are now at 11 and fully LS. They want the 4. Lyon Township, same thing.
So then let me go back to Highland.
Yes,
How is Highland doing? Did you say 11 full-time?
11 full-time, correct.
How are they doing that with a $2 million budget?
It is going, well, I believe they've been using, fund balance. They're at it, so they're going up to, another $500,000 next year, to cover their expenses.
Okay, I'm looking at the numbers, not going, wait a minute.
Well, like I said, a lot of these departments are in transitions right now. But the point I'm trying to make is they're all having employee recruitment and retention issues. They're all going and meeting, realizing that they have to start building their departments up with full-time staff.
Like Springfield Township, that budget, is that prior to the ALS?
Should be current, 2.6. Again, when I did this survey 3 years ago, they were at, I think, 2 or 3 full-time people. They're now at almost 10. So it just gives you a really good outlook of what's going on, and that we're not doing anything any differently. We're just kind of gonna have some.
Except for Addison.
Addison, which is a, smaller rural area, they did 600 calls last year compared to we did twice as many as them. They are a full-time department with 10 personnel, ALS transporting. They are at $1.5 million, just that township. So again, use all these numbers and you compare them to the fire authority, which is 2 separate townships, which the budget you guys just approved to go to the townships is a little over $1 million per township. You can still see the savings in being an authority.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Groveland has a higher budget than we do.
They do.
Yeah.
But some of these numbers just make me have questions. How does Lyon Township has 16 full-time firefighters and their budget's 2.6 million?
Yep.
What do you assess, chief? Do you assess when they put in their millage? Do you assess whether or not it's a fixed millage or a special assessment district?
I didn't get any specification on anybody that had a special assessment district. I asked, for villages and they all replied with what it was.
Yeah, somebody could have a millage if they're a special assessment district, but the millage currently set up 3%, but under the SAD, they have the opportunity to float within a certain margin, right? So that's just a current operating millage. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess that would be my question for you is we're at 3.8 million.
Huh?
Oh, no, never mind.
Yeah, like, where'd you get that?
I was wondering, I'm like, George, we're not, we can't be that far off. This isn't making sense.
No, it's a-
We're just over two, but serving two different communities, right?
Yeah,
Right.
2.54.
Well, that was with our grants and stuff,
Mhm. Right.
which
Yeah.
you normally don't count your grants in your operating budget. It's money that comes in and goes out the same budget.
Yeah.
So there's, what is there, a 500,000 there?
If you take the grants out, you're looking at just over 2,100,000 roughly.
So you had like 700 for 1 grand that you took out.
It's just important when you're looking at these documents.
Yeah.
All right. Any other?
Um,
Chief's report?
I don't have anything, Chief Weil. Right, oh, there you are, okay. Captain Seal,
Love you, sir.
Lieutenant Dan,
No, sir.
all right, I have nothing more.
Okay, firefighters association. It's on paper.
Oh, you're not, remember?
Oh, who am I supposed to look at?
I don't know if I don't know if they've had a meeting yet to fill those.
So you just walked out and left them in the lurch.
He is pretty big, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Check, please.
Okay, firefighters association, MIA. Oh, Holly Township, I don't think I have anything of news to report. Rose Township?
Oh, yeah, everything. Well, I have cleanup day on May 6th at the fire hall.
You did what?
I have cleanup day on May 6th at the fire hall.
Oh, we've got,
Rose Township cleanup day
Ours too.
yeah, we've got cleanup day coming.
May 6th.
No.
I think so.
You guys gotta quit doing that.
With Republic?
No citizens.
Oh, we have Republic.
Well, you're gonna have to find our firefighters.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Oh, you got two different fire halls.
We set ours first.
no. Can I say my husband got a heart?
Yes, before we're asking.
My husband got a heart. He got a new car. Thank you, all of you, for your prayers. It was put in last Friday. He was closed on Sunday. He was extubated. Saturday, was it? Okay, this weekend, he was extubated. He had, the tube in for 8 days, so, he's trying to get his voice back, so speech therapy will be working with him, PT, OT. They did a biopsy on a new heart Friday, and, this was a week ago, Friday, got a new heart. This past Friday, and the report came back this morning, the biopsy was negative. That means his body's accepting the new heart.
Awesome.
Praise the Lord. Thank you.
Yes.
So
So thank you, everyone.
when does he come home?
I don't know, he's gonna be therapy in Henry Ford in Detroit for probably 4 more weeks. Then he'll go to an inpatient, and we don't know where it's gonna be yet. Trying to get someplace closer to home.
Well, good.
So, and then he'll come home.
And they don't hesitate to shut up ambulance. Yep.
I won't, because you guys are great. I got so many text messages, everybody volunteering to help. Continued prayers. And please, yes, because this first year is huge.
Yes.
I did forget to remind you guys again, I'm not going to be at next month's meeting.
Okay.
I will take care of sending the agenda and everything out, but I won't be present.
Matt will sit in for you.
If he so chooses.
We figured we'd have three people sit in for one.
Probably take that and make a replace.
Three Stooges.
Larry, Paul, and Kirk. Okay. Citizen at large report, I already gave that to you, 80 degrees and sunny.
That'll be my report next month.
Okay, so then we will go to, our last public comment, same rules as before, name and address. Anybody wish to speak to public comment besides Julius? He told me the only reason he does it is his foot falls asleep.
Pardon me? Julius Stern, 1445 Munger Road. I'm, believe it or not, a little awkward, uncomfortable. What I'm going to say, I'm going to be critical of one aspect. I'll call it the disposal of equipment. Whether it be ambulances, fire hose. I'm not familiar with the process, but I have, in my encounters with the public, had questions and criticism about what it appears is going on, the process. So I'd like to suggest that you do some kind of, not an auction that would have a third party, but perhaps a auction type dispersal on Marketplace or Craigslist or something like that. I'm sure that'll take effort, time, work, but it removes the.
We always do that.
You do?
Yes.
Oh. So,
That was
sorry.
a quote from the village of Holland, the way they threw their stuff away.
Yes.
That's what everybody was.
Oh, out in the, yeah. Good, thanks.
Don't put that like that.
Oh, Dan, you can grab it when it comes.
Dan Johnson, 8635 Tipsco Trail, Holly, Michigan. Just because I know there were several firefighters that were involved in it. But Mr. Tony Engelberg was sentenced today. He received a little over $1,400 in fines, 24 months probation, no contact with Rose Township or NOCFA employees, random drug and alcohol testing. He's not to access social media for a period of 2 years. And all of this information, as far as his probation, will be entered into lien. So any violation of that, there is already a cell waiting for him for 90 days.
Battery, Patsy.
Bingo.
That's interesting. Well, I was looking because you had sent me something on my phone and it's different than what you just said, but we can go.
Should be a copy and paste it.
Our next meeting will be Monday, April 17th in Rose Township at 7 PM. We will close tonight's meeting at 8:01.